comes to narcissistically abusive relationships, some people like to say, well, you chose them, so that's on you. And then the usual response to that is, a discussion about love bombing and about how narcissists don't show who they really are at the beginning and how they wear a mask and, they treat you wonderfully and all of that, right? And then the response to that is, well, when you saw who they were, then you should have left then. And I feel like we have lots of discussions about what makes it so difficult to leave a narcissistically abusive relationship. We talk about trauma bonding and the addiction that's created with the rotation of the dopamine and the cortisol. We talk about, being financially stuck because of financial abuse. We talk about a lot of different topics about what makes it so hard to leave once you're in the thick of it. But what is it that makes people not leave when that very first crazy thing happens? There can be many different reasons, but I'm going to talk about it from my perspective and my experience. So for me, the first part of that was a lack of knowledge and a lack of education on the topic of abuse. I didn't know what psychological or emotional abuse was. I had only ever heard of physical abuse. I didn't know what a narcissist was. I had no idea what manipulation was because, all of my life I had, a good family, good friends. I wasn't really involved in any bullshit. So not having any information or life experience about it, when I was in that love bombing stage, I totally believe that was real. It's a situation where you're put on a pedestal. This person is extremely attentive, caring, supportive, loving, kind, all of the things that you have been looking for in a partner that you started to believe that it just doesn't exist. And in many situations, I know it was the case in mine, they are able to keep up that love bombing for a good amount of time, long enough to lock it in as their baseline in your mind. That's who they've portrayed themselves as. That is who you've connected with. That's who you've started to fall in love with. That is who you've spent time with. That is the only them that you know. So like I said, it's locked in as their baseline, and anything outside of that baseline seems like an outlier. That's why even like little things that seem off or little red flags that pop up get brushed under the rug or get overlooked because, again, they seem like outliers to this person's baseline personality. That's why in the literal definition of narcissistic abuse, what sets it aside from other forms of abuse is the very high level of deception within their identity itself. So even that first big thing that happens that's really crazy, that doesn't make any sense, seems like an outlier to who this person is. And not only that, but it usually feels jarring when the first crazy thing happens because it just literally doesn't make any sense and your brain just goes into overload because it just doesn't make any sense. And so you don't even know how to react to it almost. And on top of that, they truly do look angry or hurt or whatever the situation is. Like their facial expressions, the way that they're talking, the way that they're moving, all of it literally makes it seem like you really did do something wrong. And again, if you've never heard of manipulation or narcissistic abuse, then you're not sitting there like, well, I think they're making this up and blaming this on me for no reason. Instead, you're going to do what you would do in a normal situation because that's what you've experienced, like you would do with a friend or a family member. You might not always understand someone's feelings, so you're going to take a step back and you're going to try to, analyze the situation. You're going to self-reflect and you're going to try to empathize. Most of us at some point in our life have felt misunderstood by someone, right? And I'm not even talking about like narcissistic abuse or a toxic relationship. I'm just talking about in general, because that can even happen in healthy relationships, which is why communication is so important, right? But we've all felt misunderstood at some point or like unseen or unheard in some way. And so in a narcissistic relationship, like I said, during the love bombing, they've been treating you like a queen or a king. And so then this crazy thing happens and you're like, wow, like this person who I love so much, or this person who has shown me so much love is truly like upset with me, right? And I don't quite understand why, but I must have done something because they're upset with me. Because I know in the past there have been times when I've been upset with someone and they don't understand why I'm upset with them. So that could be the case here too. And so, you know what, like even if I don't understand it, I'm really sorry that I hurt this person or made this person angry. So even though you don't understand it and it doesn't quite make sense, you might end up apologizing because you feel bad for hurting this person or making them angry. And then the response after that fits what it would usually be in a normal relationship. After you take accountability for something or apologize for something, then the two people are usually on good terms again. And that's usually what happens in a narcissistic relationship. After you apologize for something that you didn't do wrong, but you don't know that at the time, then the narcissist will reward you by activating the good side of them again. So that positive reinforcement is like, okay, like all they wanted was to be seen and heard and get an apology from me, even though I don't understand it. And now we're back on good terms. So it's all good. And remember, even with that first crazy thing that happens, that abuse cycle is already starting. That trauma bond is already forming because you already had this crazy amount of dopamine and oxytocin, and then that crazy happened and there comes the cortisol, and then you apologized and y'all are cool again, and now you're getting that dopamine and oxytocin again. So if you're someone who's really understanding and really empathetic and someone who typically likes to take accountability and you're introspective and you self-reflect and you have good conflict resolution skills, those qualities definitely get exploited in this dynamic. So it's just really not quite as black and white and clear as people like to make it seem. It's different when you're looking at something from an outside perspective. Like if you're looking into a relationship and you see gaslighting going on, you're like, okay, yeah, like that person is blaming this on this person, even though it was their behavior that caused the problem. When you're in it, it's not that black and white. And it's especially when it's insidious and covert and subtle. And the way the cycle works, it doesn't shorten until later. So even after that first crazy event, y'all get back on good terms again, and things are good for like a while again, even though there's some little cracks, some little things that don't make sense. Again, they feel like outliers. And then by the time the next big crazy thing happens, like I said, that trauma bond has already started forming. You've already been in this abuse cycle with them. So then it becomes harder to leave the longer that you're in it. So with all of that said, y'all, this is the reason why so many people are talking about this and why it's so important to keep talking about it and keep educating and keep spreading awareness so that people know what the is going on when it happens to them. So share with a friend and keep spreading the word.